Is your presentation a broadcast or is it a conversation? Any good presentation should be a two-way process, a conversation with an audience. It's going to be a slightly one-sided conversation, but audiences like to input. They like to interact. And that's where there's a number of interaction tools that I think you should be using in your presentations. A lot of it comes from those years, a few years back, when we were all on Teams and Zoom during lockdowns. And suddenly we had tools like polling and chat boxes and things at our disposal, and audiences really liked them. It allowed them to tell the speaker what they thought. It allowed the speaker to instantly read the room, get the temperature of the room, what people thought, what people wanted to hear about. And all good speakers now are using interaction tools as a way of keeping their audiences engaged. Audiences' attention spans have shrunk over the last few years. So interaction tools is a great way to keep an audience with you. They're particularly useful to sort of have in your back pocket if you can see an audience starting to drift. If you're reading the room and you can maybe see the body language is starting to sag and eye contact's being lost and people maybe aren't quite as interested, or God forbid they're starting to drop off. That's the time to reach for an interaction element. Lots of easy ways to do it. Probably the simplest one is to ask a question. Great way to word it. Can I have a show of hands if? And you notice I put my hand up. That gives people permission to put their hands up. Otherwise you'll often see people going, oh, what's everybody else? Has anybody else said anything yet? So just by putting your hand up, show of hands if you've done this. Make it a really easy question. I see some people suddenly getting some tortuous questions that are very hard for an audience to understand, particularly if there's a negative in it. People start wondering whether this is a double negative. So make it a really clear, simple question. And it could be as simple as show of hands if you've just understood the last couple of minutes, or show of hands if you've got questions. That's a nice way to phrase the questions thing. Rather than saying, does anybody have any questions? Show of hands if anybody's got any questions. Again, you put your hand up. Just makes it that little bit easier for somebody to say, yes, I do have a question. So show of hands, easy one to do it. Interaction, you can also say, just turn to the person next to you and you've got 30 seconds each to talk about something you're going to take away from today's session, for example. Or you've got 30 seconds to discuss the question that you think we haven't answered yet today. Let them talk. The room will buzz with energy. That real buzz, you have to make sure you can then bring the energy back and bring the focus back to you. But just getting people to talk to the person next to them, behind them, wherever, great way of building interaction. It's also actually quite a good way to introduce a sort of networking type feel to your talk as well. You can also start using tools. There are some really well-known tools around. Slido is commonly used in big conferences. I use Mentimeter a lot. It's a really lovely tool. I can put a QR code up in my slides, people scan it with a phone, and then I can start asking them questions. One of the reasons I like it is because it's anonymous. And I tell people, don't worry, I cannot see, even in the back office part of this system, who has said what. So people tend to be more honest, particularly if you've got different seniorities in the room. People are a bit nervous about saying something verbally in front of their boss, but they can say it anonymously on the screen. So you often get much more honest answers. One of the other benefits of Mentimeter or similar tools is you can output the data in a number of different ways, including qualitative, so word clouds and all that sort of stuff, but also quantitative data. Some of the systems now will actually rank responses as positive or negative and those sorts of things. And you can start to build data sets where you can compare different, maybe competitive businesses against each other. And that actually is data that a lot of businesses will find very useful and very valuable. So there are lots of tools out there. If you are still presenting online, or I shouldn't say still, because let's face it, we are all still presenting online, then things like the chat box. Let's just go into the chat box, tell me what you think of this, or say yes or no, your response to this. Polling is also good. All those sorts of tools are there, use them. Interactions are a really important part of being a presenter these days. The days of just stand and talk for 45 minutes, I think, are pretty much over. Audiences want to be able to input to what you're saying, and actually what they're saying to you should be shaping what you're then going on to talk about next. Because when people do respond, say you are using Mentimeter and results are coming up on the screen, you need to be able to interpret them and actually act upon them in the moment. Rather than just going, oh yeah, okay, yes, thank you for voting. What does that mean? There's no analysis there. You need to look at the results and say, okay, I'm interested in that, I can see this trend coming through, or that's perhaps not the result I'd expected, and then your content needs to change accordingly. So interaction tools, really important part of presenting, really important to rehearse them, particularly if you're going to use technology like Slido or Mentimeter or whatever. Make sure you know how the tools work. They're actually very easy, pretty gentle learning curve, but worth spending the time so that when you're in front of an audience, you can make it look seamless and also help other people who may not be quite as familiar with those servers. So interaction tools, great tool. Do try them, and I will look forward to seeing what you're doing next time you're on stage and I'm interacting with you.